You need to watch this if you struggle with sleepless nights. We all crave it, that warm, comforting embrace of family, the laughter of children echoing through a loving home. But what happens when the light dims, when the laughter turns to silence, and that warm embrace starts to feel cold? What lurks beneath the surface of seemingly perfect families? We push them down, these unsettling thoughts, ignore the whispers that tell us something's not quite right. But some secrets, some horrors, refuse to stay buried. They claw their way back, demanding to be heard. Tonight we face those horrors. Join me if you dare, as we journey into the heart of true parenting nightmares. Stories whispered in hushed tones, shared by those who survived to tell the tale. Each story, a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest horrors don't lurk in the shadows, but within the very walls we call home. These aren't just stories, they're warnings, reminders that beneath the surface of normalcy, darkness festers. Are you ready to confront the darkness? It began, as these stories often do, with a move. A young family, the Millers, escaping the city for a quaint, charming town upstate. A fresh start, a chance to breathe. The house was perfect, spacious, with a big backyard for their 7-year-old son Ethan to explore. Sarah, Ethan's mother, poured her heart into making it a home. John, her husband, threw himself into his work, relieved to finally provide for his family in peace. They were happy, or so they thought. The first few weeks were idyllic. Picnics in the backyard, fireflies winking in the twilight, the creaking of the old house a comforting lullaby. But as the days turned into weeks, a subtle unease began to creep in, like a chill wind through a drafty window. It started with Ethan. He became withdrawn, his laughter replaced with a nervous silence. He refused to sleep alone, claiming he saw things in the shadows. "Mummy, there's a man in my room," Ethan would whisper, his small body trembling. "He watches me when the lights are out." Sarah dismissed it as nightmares, children and their imaginations. But deep down, a seed of doubt was planted. She began noticing things too, a flicker of movement in the periphery, a cold spot near the stairs, sounds she couldn't quite place. John, ever the pragmatist, brushed it off as an old house settling. "It's just your imagination," he'd say, kissing her forehead. "Don't let Ethan's fears get to you." But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Their once happy home felt heavy, shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere that clung to them like a shroud. Ethan's nightmares worsened. His once vivid imagination morphed into something darker, more sinister. One night, Sarah was awakened by Ethan's terrified sobs. She rushed to his room, her heart pounding in her chest. "Ethan, honey, what is it?" she asked, gathering him in her arms. "The man," he whimpered, pointing a trembling finger at the closet door. "He spoke to me. He said he wants to play." Sarah stared at the closet door, her blood running cold. It was just an old house. It had to be. But a primal fear gripped her heart, squeezing out all rational thought. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences escalated. Footsteps in the dead of night, objects moving on their own, whispers just on the edge of hearing, seeming to emanate from the very walls themselves. Then came the discovery. Ethan, playing hide-and-seek, stumbled upon a hidden room in the attic. A room Sarah and John had never seen before, concealed behind a dusty old tapestry. The room was small and cramped, with a single cobwebbed window casting long, eerie shadows across the floor. Children's toys lay scattered about, forgotten relics of a bygone era. But it was the walls that chilled Sarah to the bone. Covered in childish drawings, crudely rendered in charcoal and crayon. Children holding hands with shadowy figures, happy families with their eyes scratched out, and in the centre of it all a name scrawled over and over again in a child's handwriting. Billy, Terror, raw and consuming, flooded Sarah's senses. This wasn't just an old house. It held secrets, dark, terrible secrets, and she had a sinking feeling that Billy was at the heart of it all. Desperate for answers, Sarah delved into the history of the house. She spent hours poring over dusty town records, her fear battling with a growing sense of dread. And then she found it. A news article from decades earlier. A young boy, Billy Carter, vanished from the house without a trace. The case was never solved. The family, torn apart by grief and suspicion, abandoned the house shortly after. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Billy, the drawings, the whispers. It all started to make a terrifying kind of sense. But there was one piece of the puzzle missing. She had to know what happened to Billy. Driven by a mother's intuition and a growing sense of horror, Sarah returned to the attic room. She examined every inch, every drawing, every faded scribble on the wall. And then she saw it. A small, almost imperceptible bulge in the floorboards beneath the window. With John's help, they pried open the floorboards, their hearts pounding in unison, and there, hidden beneath years of dust and decay, was a small wooden box. Inside, a single faded photograph, a young boy with bright eyes and a mischievous grin, his arm around a shadowy figure that seemed to blend into the background. The same figure from Ethan's nightmares, the same figure from the drawings on the wall. And beneath the photograph, a child's drawing, a stick figure family. Their faces twisted into grotesque smiles, standing before a burning house. Above them, a single word, scrawled in a child's hand. Together. As Sarah stared at the drawing, a cold realization washed over her. Billy wasn't taken. He wasn't lost. He was still there, trapped within the walls of the house, his spirit tethered to the horrors he had witnessed, and he wasn't alone. The old house stood sentinel at the edge of the lake, a grand old dame with peeling paint and secrets whispered on the wind. The Caldwell family inherited it from a distant aunt, a woman they barely knew, shrouded in mystery and hushed rumours. A fresh start, Mark Caldwell declared, his voice echoing through the dusty rooms. His wife Claire smiled tentatively, her gaze lingering on the shadows that clung to the corners. Their teenage daughter Lily remained unconvinced, her headphones a barrier against the oppressive silence of the house. The lake house was steeped in a strange energy, a palpable weight that settled upon their shoulders as they crossed the threshold. It wasn't malevolent, not precisely. It felt more like an echo, a lingering presence that watched their every move with a mixture of sadness and longing. Lily, ever sensitive to the unseen, felt it most keenly. A shiver down her spine when she caught a glimpse of movement in the reflection of the lake, a cold spot near the old grandfather clock that ticked with an erratic rhythm. The Caldwells quickly learned that the lake house held a treasure trove of forgotten memories. Boxes filled with faded photographs, antique toys, and yellowed letters tied with ribbon, each item a piece of a puzzle they were desperate to solve. There was a bittersweet joy in piecing together the story of the family that had come before. A loving couple, their faces etched with a happiness that transcended time. A young boy, their son, his laughter echoing through the still photographs like a ghost in the attic. Lily found herself drawn to the boy in the pictures. He seemed so full of life, his smile infectious, his eyes sparkling with mischief. He became a phantom playmate, a figment of her imagination that she confided in, sharing her secrets with the dusty photographs. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the lake in an eerie orange glow, Lily stumbled upon a dusty old reel-to-reel tape recorder tucked away in a forgotten corner of the attic. It was surrounded by boxes filled with labelled tapes, Summer of '78, David's birthday, family vacation. Eager to hear the voices behind the photographs, Lily carried the tape recorder and a box of tapes down to the living room. Her parents, absorbed in unpacking and reminiscing, barely noticed her discovery. She slipped a tape labeled "David by the Lake" into the machine, her fingers trembling with anticipation. The sound of a child's laughter, echoing with an almost unnatural clarity, filled the room. Lily's heart leaped. It was David, his voice filled with the joy of summer days spent by the lake. She could almost picture him running barefoot through the grass, his laughter carried on the breeze. Then a new voice, a man's, deep and soothing, joined in. "Go on, David, sing for your mama." A beat of silence, then David's voice, sweet and clear, singing a simple lullaby. Lily closed her eyes, transported back in time. Suddenly a blood-curdling scream ripped through the idyllic scene. Lily sat bolt upright, her blood turning to ice. It was David, his voice filled with terror. Then a splash, followed by the chilling sound of a struggle. The tape went dead. Lily fumbled with the recorder, her hand shaking so badly she could barely press the stop button. What had she just heard? Was it real, or just a figment of her imagination, fueled by the eerie atmosphere of the house? She had to tell someone, had to share the horror of what she had heard. But the words caught in her throat. How could she explain the terror that gripped her heart, the cold certainty that something terrible had happened to David all those years ago? That night, Lily lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, the silence of the house broken only by the creaking of the old house and the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that David's unseen presence lingered in the shadows. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the cracks in the curtains, Lily drifted off into a restless sleep. She was awakened by a sound, faint but unmistakable, a melody, sweet and haunting, carried on the wind. It was the same lullaby David had sung on the tape. She raced to the window, her heart pounding in her chest. The surface of the lake was perfectly still, the reflection of the house staring back at her like a distorted mirror. And yet, she could still hear the melody, faint but clear, as if carried on the breath of a ghost. Driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, Lily returned to the attic, determined to find the rest of the tapes, to uncover the truth of what happened to David. But when she reached the corner where she had found the tape recorder, her blood ran cold. The boxes were overturned, the tapes scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. The tape recorder was gone. Panic surged through Lily. Had someone been there, watching her, listening to her every move? Or was her mind playing tricks on her, the oppressive atmosphere of the house seeping into her sanity? She searched frantically, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to find the rest of the tapes, had to know what happened to David. But it was no use. The tapes were gone, vanished into thin air. As she stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a family's past, a chilling thought occurred to her. What if she wasn't meant to find the tapes? What if someone or something didn't want her to know the truth? That night, as the storm raged outside, Lily sat huddled on her bed, the wind howling like a banshee, the rain lashing against the windows. Sleep was impossible. The events of the day, the haunting melody, the missing tapes, swirled in her mind, a terrifying kaleidoscope of fear and uncertainty. She glanced at her reflection in the rain-streaked window pane, her face pale and drawn in the flickering lamplight. And then she saw it, a figure standing behind her, its features obscured by the shadows. It was taller than a man, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. The figure reached out a hand, its long bony fingers brushing against the glass. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. Lily stumbled back from the window, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen something that defied explanation, something that wanted her to know that she wasn't alone, that David was still there, trapped within the walls of the lake house, his spirit forever bound to the secrets hidden beneath the murky depths of the lake. The old Victorian mansion loomed over them, a monument to forgotten wealth and shadowed secrets. It was Amelia's inheritance, a gift from a great aunt she'd never met, a woman whispered to be eccentric and reclusive. "It's imposing," her husband Daniel remarked, his voice barely a murmur in the stillness that clung to the house like a shroud. Amelia, ever the pragmatist, forced a smile. "It needs work," she admitted. "But imagine the potential. A fresh start for us, for Emily." Emily, their 5-year-old daughter, remained silent, her wide, watchful eyes absorbing every detail of the imposing structure. She seemed drawn to it, her small hands slipping free from her father's grasp to trace the intricate carvings on the wrought iron gate. From the moment they crossed the threshold, a palpable shift occurred. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of unspoken histories and the faint scent of lavender and decay. Emily, usually a chatterbox, fell silent, her gaze darting about the cavernous rooms as if sensing unseen presences. The first few nights were the hardest. Unfamiliar noises echoed through the labyrinthine corridors. The creaking of floorboards, the sighing of wind through the eaves, a low, rhythmic humming that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Emily's sleep, once peaceful, became troubled. She'd wake in the dead of night, her eyes wide and unseeing, whispering to something only she could perceive. "She's here," she'd murmur, her small voice trembling. "She wants to play." Amelia dismissed it as nightmares, the product of an overactive imagination in unfamiliar surroundings. But Daniel, pragmatic as he was, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He started noticing things, shadows moving in the periphery, a fleeting chill that seemed to follow him from room to room, the unsettling sensation of being watched. One evening, as he was tucking Emily into bed, he caught a glimpse of something in the antique mirror that hung on the wall. A fleeting reflection of a young girl, her face pale and drawn, her eyes reflecting an unnerving wisdom beyond her years. He blinked, and she was gone. As days turned into weeks, Emily's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She became withdrawn, her laughter replaced with a disconcerting silence, her once bright eyes now clouded with an ancient sadness. She spent hours talking to herself, her voice a hushed whisper, her gaze fixed on some unseen point in the distance. One afternoon, Amelia, drawn by an unsettling silence, followed Emily's muffled whispers to the attic. The air in the cramped, dusty space was thick with the scent of mothballs and decay. Cobwebs hung from the rafters like ghostly shrouds, and dust motes danced in the single ray of sunlight that pierced the gloom. Emily sat in the centre of the room, her back to Amelia, surrounded by a circle of antique dolls. She was humming softly, her voice a haunting melody that sent shivers down Amelia's spine. "Emily, sweetheart, what are you doing?" Amelia asked, her voice catching in her throat. Emily turned, her face illuminated by a shaft of sunlight, her eyes wide and vacant, her lips curved into an unsettling smile. "We're playing," she whispered, her voice thin and reedy. "She likes to play." As Amelia delved deeper into the history of the house, she unearthed fragments of a tragic past. The previous owner, a woman named Eleanor, had lived a solitary life, her only companion a young daughter who had died tragically in a drowning accident in the nearby lake. Local legend whispered that Eleanor, driven mad by grief, had refused to believe her daughter was gone, claiming that her spirit lingered within the walls of the house. She had filled the rooms with dolls, each one a vessel for her daughter's lost spirit, her sanity unraveling thread by thread until her own death a few years later. One evening, while rummaging through a dusty trunk in the attic, Amelia stumbled upon a small wooden box, hidden beneath layers of faded fabric and yellowed lace. Inside, nestled in a bed of velvet, lay a porcelain doll, its once delicate features now marred by time and neglect. The doll's face was cracked, one eye missing, its porcelain skin cold and unsettling to the touch. As Amelia lifted the doll, she felt a chill race down her spine. Emily's words echoed in her ears. "She wants to play." A wave of nausea washed over her, a primal fear gripping her heart. This was no ordinary doll. It was a conduit, a vessel for something dark and ancient, something that had been awakened within the walls of the house. The nightmares started that night. Vivid, terrifying dreams that bled into Amelia's waking hours, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. She'd see flashes of a young girl, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes filled with a chilling emptiness. She'd hear whispers in the dead of night, her name spoken with a child's lisp, a cold breath on her cheek. Daniel, initially skeptical, was forced to confront the truth. He too experienced the strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, disembodied laughter echoing through the corridors, the unsettling feeling of being watched, of being judged. Emily, however, seemed unfazed by these events. She embraced the darkness, her connection to the unseen growing stronger with each passing day. She'd talk about Eleanor and her daughter as if they were close friends, her voice filled with a chilling familiarity. One evening, as Daniel watched Emily playing in the garden, her laughter echoing through the twilight, a terrifying realization dawned on him. Emily wasn't just haunted by the spirit of Eleanor's daughter, she was becoming her. The line between the living and the dead blurred, the house becoming a prison, its walls closing in on them, suffocating them with grief and despair. Amelia, her sanity hanging by a thread, tried desperately to break free, to save her family from the clutches of the darkness that had consumed them. But it was too late. The house had claimed them, its grip on their souls absolute. As flames engulfed the mansion, consuming its secrets in a fiery inferno, only Amelia and Daniel managed to escape, their minds shattered, their lives irrevocably broken. Emily was never seen again. Some whispered that she had perished in the fire, her spirit finally reunited with her ghostly playmate. Others claimed that she had become one with the house, her laughter echoing through the ruins, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay hidden beneath the surface of their idyllic world. The mansion stood for years, a charred skeleton against the skyline, a monument to a family's demise, a chilling testament to the enduring power of grief and the terrifying truth that some houses are best left undisturbed. Three families forever marked by the darkness that festered within the walls of their homes. The Millers, torn apart by the vengeful spirit of a forgotten child, their dreams of a fresh start turned into a waking nightmare. The Caldwells, haunted by the echoes of laughter and the chilling truth hidden beneath the surface of a tranquil lake. And the Ashleys, their lives shattered by the insidious grip of grief, their daughter claimed by the shadows that clung to their inheritance. Each story a chilling reminder that the things that terrify us most are often closer than we think. The secrets we keep, the truths we bury, have a way of resurfacing, of demanding to be heard no matter the cost. We seek solace in the familiar, in the routines of daily life, in the belief that our homes are our sanctuaries. But what happens when these sanctuaries become prisons? When the walls that protect us also hold us captive, suffocating us with the weight of our past sins? As we turn away from these tales of horror, we carry with us the unsettling knowledge that the line between the real and the imagined is often blurred. The faces we see in the shadows, the whispers we hear in the dead of night, are they figments of our overactive imaginations or something more sinister, something that lurks just beyond the veil of our perception? We dismiss the stories as fiction, as cautionary tales meant to keep us awake at night. But deep down, a primal fear stirs within us, a fear that whispers of forgotten truths, of ancient evils that linger in the shadows, waiting for the opportunity to claim us as their own. The next time you feel a chill run down your spine, the next time you hear a noise you can't explain, take a moment to listen. Pay attention to the whispers in the walls, the shadows that dance at the edge of your vision, for they may hold the key to unlocking the secrets that bind us, the truths that haunt our waking hours and fuel our darkest nightmares. We are left with more questions than answers. What becomes of those who are taken by the darkness? Do they find peace, or are they condemned to wander the earth, forever tethered to the places where they met their untimely end? And what of those who survive? How do they reconcile the horrors they've witnessed with the normalcy of everyday life? Do they ever truly escape the shadows, or are they forever marked, forever changed by their encounters with the unknown? These are questions that may never be fully answered. Questions that linger long after the stories have been told. Questions that challenge our perceptions of reality and make us question the very foundations upon which we build our lives. So, the next time you find yourself alone in the dark, remember the families who dared to confront the horrors that lurked within their homes. Remember the children who whispered to unseen playmates, the parents who fought desperately to protect their loved ones from the clutches of the unknown. And as you drift off to sleep, remember this: the darkness is always listening. It knows your fears, your secrets, your deepest desires. And sometimes, when you least expect it, it will choose to reveal itself, to remind you that you are not alone, and that the things that go bump in the night are often closer than you think.